Welcome to the very first episode of Knitting's a Drag! I'm Alexis Hex, and I'm here to be your guide to the wonderful world of yarn! Today, we're going to learn to make your very first scarf! Yes, it's all garter stitch is what it's called. It's where you knit every row. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So when doing the long tail cast on, a little tip that I like to do is the length of your tail will determine how many stitches you can put on to your needle. So we're going to start with 22 stitches for the scarf that we're making. So what I like to do is I just take the yarn and I wrap it 22 times. So that's 22 wraps, then let's go a little bit longer, and then I pull that off. So here is where I like to make my slip knot. To make a slip knot, you take your yarn, and you twist it like this, bring this one up through here, and you give it a little, not too tight because you still want it to be able to move, and place it all through, and there we go. That is how you get the first stitch onto your needles. To cast on using the long tail method, you want to look for, this is the tail of your yarn and your working yarn. So you take your fingers, go through here, right. And so my thumb has the tail yarn, my index finger has the working yarn. And then you follow around, come underneath, you come over and under this one, and back underneath this one. Drop your thumb, and you've made a stitch. So it's under, back through, drop, and there's another stitch. Now you continue doing this until you have all the stitches that you need for your particular project on your needle. And again, it's under, and back through. And under, over, under, back through. And so when you're doing it, the main movement is just, it's very minimal, and then your thumb picks up the new yarn as you're getting that new stitch tightened. So it's under, over and under, back through. See, and then with this thumb here, come down and you pick up that tail yarn, and there you go. Under, back through, and there we go. Casting on is something you need a little bit of practice with because you only do it once per time. And for this project, we're going to cast on 22. So I'll see you when I have my 22 stitches. Okay. So as you can see now, I have cast on all 22 stitches on my needle. You can see that this is the little bit that I have left of my tail, and you do want to have a little tail left so that you can weave it in at the end. But now we're going to learn the knit stitch. Alright, so when we do the knit stitch, you're going to take your working yarn, and I like to kind of do like a double wrap and use my pinky to hold the access. Everyone will find the way that works best for them. It's a process of trial and error. Then you'll take your other needle, and you see the first stitch on here. You come in from the left and the front, and you put the needle through. Then with your working yarn, you wrap it around and you bring it back through that first stitch. So you can see how this new stitch I made is on this needle while the old stitch is still here. And you slide it off that needle. And that's a knit stitch. And you repeat it, go in, you can see it goes through, wrap it around, you're going counterclockwise, so when you look from the top, it's counterclockwise on that wrap, and then you bring it back through, so you use the tip of this needle, and you bring it back through, and pop it off. A little fun way to remember is you stab them, you choke them, scoop out the guts, and you throw them off the cliff. That's what you want to do for any queen who's trying to steal your wigs, steal your shoes. You don't mess with that. You take them out. But yeah, you continue, and that is how we knit. You want to make sure that your yarn is always held to the back when you're knitting. You don't want to bring it to the front because that makes extra loops and holes in your work. It's something you'll do later, but not right now. So again, you want to stick it in, wrap it around, bring it back through, and drop the old stitch off. There we go. Perfect. And you'll see there's not a ton of movement here. So when you're doing it a lot, you're gonna keep your needles perpendicular. You want them crossing. You don't want them to be too close together like this, or too flat. You want to kind of so they're crossing each other. That'll give you the best way so you don't lose your stitches. And off. So we're in, wrap around, bring it back through, and drop the old one off. You do that all the way to the end of the row, and I will see you at the end of the row. Okay, so as you can see, we're here. We're at the last stitch on the needle. So you take it just like normal, and from the front and the left, you wrap it around, poke it back through, and drop the last stitch off. So now you can see that all of the stitches have been dropped off, and we have all these new stitches we made on the right needle. So to do the next row, you literally just flip hands, you put the stitches onto, so this becomes your left needle, and now you have your right needle. So knitting is always transferring from the one needle to the next needle. And to start the next row, you do the same thing. But one thing to watch out for is this is your old stitches here. Don't go through that. I've seen a lot of beginning students go right through the stitch, but it's always the one that's on the needle. So as you can see, we go again from the left, go in, and then that actually helps put that other stitch down. And then you just wrap again. And you do the same thing. Over and over. And just as you're knitting, remember, find the way that feels comfortable for you to hold the yarn that keeps an even tension, because as you can see, it keeps it nice and taut without pulling too tight. Keep on going, because a lot of people who, when they start knitting, their tendency is just to drop the yarn, and then they go in, and then they pick it back up, and then they put it through, and then they drop it until they go through. Start yourself off good. Just make sure you're always holding it. Find out the way that works for you, because you want that tension to be really nice and consistent as you're knitting. There you go. Just like that. And again, kind of from the top you can see, going in through the front, circling around, pop it back through. So you can see that new one we just created, pop it on off. There we go. You just work your way across. And then to your, on the last one. And there we go. And then again, you flip it, start again. Make sure that when you go in, your yarn is to the back. So yeah, always make sure that your yarn is going to the back, not to the front, even though it's kind of sitting here. And you go in, take it off. Stab them, choke them, scoop out the guts, throw them off a cliff. Just pretend you're Dory and Corey. You'll find that trick in the trunk in your closet. And then you just continue this, and this is all there is to doing the knit stitch. You just continue knitting every stitch, and this is what we call garter stitch, where you knit every stitch. As you see, it's kind of even it out, flip it around. Kind of like to straighten out, kind of even out the stitches a little bit. And there we go. So when you carry on, this is the kind of fabric that it creates. We call it garter stitch. So you see all the little bumps, and it looks the same on both sides. So easily, with just the knit stitch, you can make this garter stitch scarf. You can add little tassels. So when you're making a scarf, a good rule of thumb is you want to make it as long as you are tall. So continue knitting on that swatch until you hit about as long as you are tall, because then you get a good wrap around. And I'll knit a couple more rows on that one, and then I will show you how to bind off, and we'll add some tassels. To finish a piece, you have all these live stitches and you need them to not be live anymore. So there's the process we call binding off, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So binding off works just like knitting to start with. You go in through the front, you knit a stitch, and you have a stitch on your right needle. Knit a second stitch, now you have two. Now here's where the magic happens. So you take the tip of your left needle, put it in that first stitch that you knit, like that. Then you bring it over the second stitch. So you hold on to it still with your right needle and drop it off, leaving one stitch on the right needle. And you carry on all the way across the row. So 2 stitches. Go into that first stitch, and then you carry it over the top of that other stitch and drop it off. And that just locks that stitch in place so that there's less live stitches. And we continue on and over. Again, you knit that stitch like you've been doing the whole time. Come in right over here from the front and drop it over. it over. Just like that. Let's continue all the way to the end. And as you can see, now we have this nice part here that's starting to be all bound off so that there's no more live stitches. Bind off, again, bind off, going over, perfect, just like that. Maybe a little bit more of a close-up on it. The first stitch. Drop it over, holding on to that other stitch with this needle, and it's dropped. Okay. Perfect, just like that. There we go. So now we're down to having one live stitch on the needle. So what we're gonna do is you leave a nice tail. Take our scissors and we will cut. Then basically doing the same thing we've been doing. So you have this big loop, scoop the loose strand through the loop, boom, and bring it down. And that is how you bind off. So that's how you finish the edge of whatever project you're working on. So when you're done with the length that you have of your scarf, that's what you do, and we'll finish off, and then we get to weave in the ends. Then to weave in the ends, you just kind of bring it through. I like to, there's, no one way that works for everybody, but this is the way I always kind of like to do it. I kind of follow the natural loops on the top here. Into it, and you can kind of see it's making a line. And then just pull it through so you can see it. Perfect, kind of adjust that part so you can see how it's going in nicely. Let's continue on. All through. Pull it a little bit. then once you have that part, snip your excess. And then you just repeat that process for the bottom. And after you do that, I will show you how to add tassels. There's many things you can use when making tassels, but my favorite thing to use is a DVD case. A lot of people use cardboard, that works too, but I'm going to use this and I'll show you why. First, you grab your tail end of your yarn, line it up here at the top where the opening part is. And then we're going to wrap it around many, many times. Round and around we go. Then I always like to stop on the opposite side. Take your scissors and cut. And here's why I like using the DVD case so much. Your scissors fit right into the little hole for the fingers to open the case, and you can cut right down the center. Give you nice even lengths to make your tassels. Alright, let me show you how that works then. Finished scarf, and we'll be using this for that. You can make the tassels however big you like. This will use 3 strands. Kind of grab them, even them out. Then you're going to find the center of them like that. Then you're going to take a crochet hook similar to the size in which you worked up your scarf. Pop the crochet hook through. And then you're going to grab that little loop, pull it through, pull it up, and pull it through. And that's all there is to it. That's how you add tassels. Then you continue going on until your end of your scarf looks like that. You can space them out however you like. You can just do corners, you can do bigger. It's all up to you. So there we go. Everything you need to knit your very first scarf. I'm Alexis Hex, and until next time, stay hexy. Bye.